Hi there, it's Uncle Ron, and tonight I have some thoughts, as I often do, but this time I'll actually share them with you. A couple people have brought up recently, one in writing and the other in video, the topic that is kind of uncomfortable when it comes to those of us in the community, but it does beg to be asked. Does no one really care about your replay? Well, it's complicated, and let's go with that. The good news is that that's not always the case. There are probably now, over in the 5 years that I've been actively doing replays and videos of those replays, a veritable boom of new people who want to share whatever it is that they want to do with you. When I started, I think it was pretty much baseball demos and now Red Sox fan that were leading, and ID Jester, I guess, to a degree, leading the charge in putting games onto YouTube. And if I'm wrong with that, and again, we're talking 5 years ago now, that was it. Today, there are probably 20, 25 of us who do regularly scheduled videos on either Twitch or YouTube, and probably that many, if not more, on the various message boards, whether it's a game company message board or some of the Delphi boards, which are unofficial, that share replays. In fact, Jamie Marshall, who's the one that brought the subject up originally, has just started publication of the Rebirth of Sports Gaming Journal. And of course, there's St. Patrick's wonderful magazine that they produce 3 or 4 times a year, and which I'm blanking on the name now. I'm sorry, St. Patrick, I really am. But so that gives gamers an audience to talk about replays and games and that sort of thing. And there's also the Delphi boards, which is what I started to read back 23, 25 years ago when I came back into the hobby. And so for the longest time, message boards was how you did that. And now, and of course, the Digitalized podcast, which we're now on year 5 of. So there are plenty of avenues and options out there to share what's important to you. And I think one of the reasons why this comes up is that, yes, you've played game X or game Y for a while, and all of a sudden you've caught a video or listened to the podcast or got word of St. Patrick's magazine or signed up for an account at Delphi, and you realize that you're not alone. And you sit there and read for a long time or watch games of Stratomatic or APA or Payoff Pitch or what Inside Pitch, and go, wow, I can do that. There are other people besides me that play. I want to share that too. And I think, when I was talking with Dave Gardner about this a couple days ago, we both realized that we've gone from very few people doing this to a lot of people doing this, either in written form or audio form or even video form. And the reason, number one, why no one might care is that there's just so much out there that wasn't out there before. So that's good for the hobby. It means that people care. And again, it can kind of be disillusioning if you expect people to care, just because there are so many different things out there for people to pay attention to. I have done about 1,250 videos or streams in the last 5 years. That's a lot. And I'll tell you, even with what I do, and when something goes to YouTube that's about an hour in length, and trust me, we're not going to talk for an hour, people watch between 10 and 15 minutes of it. And you look at that and go, wow, really? That's it. But that's also good. Someone might flip on for 30 seconds, realize it's not the real game, and move on. And so there are others who sit there and watch. And I have a fair amount of regulars who watch on Twitch and will watch the next day on YouTube and so on and so forth. But again, if you average it all out, it's 10 to 15 minutes of time that they spend, the average person who watches. And a channel that's pushing 1,500 subscribers, my game videos, do roughly 110 views on YouTube, which is great as far as I'm concerned. But if you're looking at that, it's about less than 10% of those who actively subscribe to my channel watch a replay video of mine. Again, for me, not a huge deal. Okay, no, not that. But I've been doing this for a while, and I've expected it. In fact, I'm sure that this little chat I'll drop will do better than any game I do in the next 2 weeks. Just that people want to hear about gaming topics, but they don't necessarily want to watch or read about you playing a game. Now, let's take a look at some of the reasons why, as Jamie Marshall and Replay Baseball Journal talked about, why your replay might not get the traction that you want it to. Okay, first of all, I'm going to steal a line from Gardner. We all have birthdays, and we're all very excited about our birthday, and very excited maybe about our spouse's birthday or our children's birthday, because they'll certainly let us know if that's the case. But it's unique to ourselves. If you have a birthday and we're friends on Facebook, chances are, if I know if you and I have been in contact before, I'm going to write you a happy birthday and go along with the rest of my day. Okay? If you play the greatest game in the history of mankind and write about it, I may or may not pay attention depending on what else I got going on the course of a given day. That doesn't mean that I think your work is rubbish or anything like that. It just means that in the course of going over something, as an admin for the Digital Dice Facebook group and one of the co-admins for the Sports Simulations and Replay groups, and having, the Discord page, if you're a Patreon for Digital Dice, I see just over the course of my day, probably 35 to 40 replay posts. And again, I look at them all, but that doesn't mean I pay attention to them all. I'm glad that people share what they want to share, and it goes back to the birthday thing. They're very excited. When you play a game, you are very excited about what it is that you're playing, and you want to share that with the world, and we give you an opportunity to do that. But that doesn't mean that everyone's going to come running to see what you did. Again, that doesn't mean that what you did is less valid or what I did is less valid. Let's go through some of the reasons why people may not be interested in what you do. They might not like the sport of what you do. I know of people who aren't real fond of tennis and boxing and baseball and football and you name it. If you're doing something that you love, that doesn't mean that everyone around you loves what you do. I personally, and again, I'll talk about Dave here, when he does a lot of his early 70s hockey stuff, I'll come in for a couple of minutes to watch, but it's not an era of sports that grabs me. He does a very good job with hockey. He makes it exciting. He has his regulars. It's a good broadcast and all that, but it's not something that I'm going to go look through. Oh, I can watch 1,000 different things on YouTube or read a variety of different things. Do I really want to watch a game between the Bruins and the California Seals? No, not really. He does. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And there are people who will watch. And again, it is a top flight broadcast. There's nothing wrong with anything that he does. It just is not in my wheelhouse of things that I'm going to drop things to watch for. I know from my experience doing ball games, if you're watching live, you tend to watch longer. But on YouTube, again, 15 minutes of an hour. Every hour that I do, they average about 15 minutes on that hour. Nothing wrong with that. Again, with close to 1,500 subs, I get 120 views. So less than 10% of my subscribers actually watch my game videos. Again, if your thing isn't whatever it is I'm presenting, I don't take it personally. There are people who want me to do more football. There are people that want me to do more golf. I want to do more tennis and other things. People don't watch me do tennis. I like tennis. It's just part of the things. And I think one of the things that I think hurts, especially with Delphi now, and of course on the message boards, is that you get a view count. You know how many people have clicked on that. And you know, if you have someone that's been doing, let's say, a longer replay, a full season basketball or something like that, and on Delphi they have 20,000 views, and your Nolan Ryan no-hitter has 204. Again, it comes down to what it is that they're presenting and you're presenting, and chances are 99% of it isn't personal. It comes down to more of a general interest. Again, you're playing what you consider to be fun. And what you consider to be fun isn't necessarily what anyone else considers to be fun. And that's it is what it is. So here are a few things that I would recommend to try to catch people's attention. Again, play the projects that you want to summarize in a replay, either in a message board post or a video or a blog, that excite you the most, and then give us an indication of why we should be excited about your project. Just don't post a box score and call it a day. Tell us what excites you about this. I want to do, it could be I want to do Hank Aaron's career replay, or I went to this Tom Seaver start in 1973, and I've been intrigued by his career ever since, and I'm going to do a career replay. Give people, regardless of how you do it, again, video or written or Facebook post message, a reason of why this is important to you. That would be number one. Not everyone's going to go and read your stuff, or watch your stuff, but at least you can kind of make that basic connection there. We're all a little bit older, and so from our early 50s to our late 60s, and some a little bit older, and so we're all in that same generation of sports fanhood, where if you're a big fan of, let's say, Walter Payton, and want to do a career replay of that, and you get a game that's really, really good, that people are going to follow that because they were big fans of Walter Payton, or Muhammad Ali, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or Larry Bird, or Gordie Howe, or Bobby Orr, or whatever. Again, try to find some connection. Share why this is exciting and important to you. We understand that our pets and our kids and our spouses and our next door neighbors and the mailman and the person that's pouring your coffee at Dunks or Starbucks just doesn't care about Rod Gilbert and a hat trick. Okay? Oh, what? Who's that? Ron Gilbert? And so you have found people who are excited about whatever it is that you want to share. So the first thing is explain why this is important to you. I grew up, if I was to do a Jim Rice replay, he was my favorite player growing up. And so there would be, yeah, that was great. Or my team won a championship, or your team won a championship, or you came just close to winning a championship and you want to change. Whatever the reason is, when you start a replay and you just kind of go, you don't need to say the same sentence over and over in every game. Also, don't take on projects that you want to share with people. Don't bite off more than what you can chew. If you start projects, finish your projects, or make a good effort to finish a project. There's no crime if you don't finish. You should just say, this didn't work for me. They didn't do what I wanted them to do. Whether, Peyton got hurt, or the Red Sox lost 10 in a row, or whatever it is. Not every project is there. Remember, we probably, even between YouTube and any message board, probably see a grand total of 1% of any game that's played, whether it's Action PC or APBA or OOTP or 4th Street baseball or football. The grand majority of players aren't sharing it. They're having their own fun with it. Hopefully, they're having their own fun with it, or they're moving on to another game that they're going to have more fun with it. So they might have read about your replay or watched a video about your replay and maybe bought the game because of it, or watched you play and then learned how to play to enjoy the game better. But again, I would estimate 98, 99% of every die that is rolled or every return key that is hit just goes into the ether. It is their own, you're playing for your own personal satisfaction. And that should be whether you play for the camera, for a message board, for a blog post, or just to cure some boredom. It should be because you want to play it and it's fun. One of the reasons why I really don't do a lot of football replays anymore for the camera, I didn't find it very fun. And if I don't find it very fun, I don't expect you to find it very fun. And, that joy needs to come through regardless of how you present it. And again, remember, the grand majority of stuff, even that I play, might get talked about on the show. But if I spend a couple minutes talking about how fun it is to play the 85-86 Celtics, it takes an hour to play one of those games in strap basketball. I'm not going to go through every pass or everything like that. I mean, it's interesting to see people play a game, but it's a lot more fun for you to play the game. I know for me, I need to write more. I know that. That's why I started a Substack, ronjuckett.substack.com. But on the other hand, it's more fun to play the game than it is to write about the game. It's one of the reasons why I started to film the games, was because, or video the games, or stream the games, is that it kind of killed two birds with one stone. I got to do what I wanted to do and call a game while playing the game. But again, those 2 or 3 or 4 Action PC baseball videos I release a week this time of year, it's about 50% of what I play overall. And with just the exception of talking about it with Dave on Digital to Dice, that's about it. The rest of them I'm playing for me. And that should be priority number one. Whatever you play, you should be playing for you. Okay? If you're new to wanting to share replays, I guess my suggestion is, pick something that you really do care about. The season when you were 14 years old. That's the most common answer I can give you. What should I start? You should play the season when you're 14, when you were 14 years old. Okay, if you are playing, let's say, Action PC, Strat, or APBA, places that have a huge internal web presence as far as message boards are concerned, post your results there, because they're not going to be asking you, what game is this? How did you play it? They're going to know how the game works. It makes it easier to make that connection, and you can just share your joy, because that's really, really what this is sharing your joy. And again, not everything is going to be your cup of tea. If you're going to do something that most of us are just kind of roll our eyes about, you'll get some people to watch or read or listen, but don't expect everyone to do that, because you just don't have an interest in everything that happens. So the first thing would be, again, share it with the closest gaming community that fits. If you're doing an Action PC replay, share it on their Tap and Talk forum. Get good feedback from there. Hone your skills as a writer, if that's what you're thinking. No one's going to judge you because you didn't put the comma in the right place, or you're too wordy, or you're not wordy enough, or even if you just post the box score. You're going to find people who are going to be interested in your projects. If you feel a little more comfortable with your skills, Tabletop Sports or over at Delphi would be the next place to go, or something that was sports specific. If you're a huge hockey fan, there's a huge hockey board over at Delphi. Fan of British gaming, soccer, rugby, cricket, there's a big board over on Delphi that can fit your needs, and they're going to enjoy it and appreciate it, because we all want what we share to be appreciated. If you feel like doing videos, the number one thing that I would recommend is, as soon as you turn on that camera, you got to be entertaining. You have to give me a reason to watch. Cards and dice with a camera behind you is tough to do, because people, when they watch you, they don't want to think. They want to know the score. They want to know who's playing. Chances are they want to know what game you are playing, what season you are playing, how you are playing the game. And the more of that information you have on the screen, the longer people are going to watch. And again, if it's a project that greatly interests you, you tell a story or two. The stats are there on the screen. If you're playing the computer game, or if you're playing a cards and dice game, let the people see the cards that you got, and so they can play along with you, interact with the chat. That's how, or answer your comments. That's how you'd build a community, and that's how you get sampled again. Going back to my days when I worked in retail, any idiot could have come into my store. It was my job to make sure that they came back the second time. And so it's not that people don't, to wrap up, it's not that people don't care about other people's replays. You've got to give them a reason to follow. And I highly, highly, highly recommend writing them out, because then I, as a reader, and other people as readers, can take the time and go through it when we have the chance, when we can give it the time to be front and center. And if you're a good replay writer, chances I'm going to follow up with that. Let me leave you with one last story. APBA football is a game I'm never going to play. It's just too widespread as far as table space and cards for me to be able to play it. But any time that Mark Zarb or Ogard62 go into a season, I might not read it right away, but if it's still there, I'll go through and spend 40, 45 minutes going through posts just to read it, because that captivates me. Even if it's an NFL season I don't care about, but because they gave it their own treatment, I was interested. And so it is possible to be interested in things that you just don't care about. And don't worry if the world isn't falling at your feet, because they're not living and dying by what you did with the 56 Cubs. Okay? There is an audience out there for what you want to share. Be patient with it. You'll find it. But again, it comes down to how you present whatever it is you want to share. It doesn't need to be done in broadcast style. It doesn't need to be done in newspaper style. It should be, what did you do during the course of the game? I can't believe in an APBA game I rolled and had 7 13s in a row with Doc Ellis pitching. That should never happen, but by George, it did. And there'll be people who read that on the APBA forum going, oh, I can appreciate that. And they're going to follow you. So one of the things that I learned from being a professional writer is you got to write what people want to read. Now, in this case, if you're going to share something with the world, try to share it in a way that other people can relate to it. Again, you don't need to go bang your head against the wall and buy equipment and all that. Just whatever it is at the keyboard or with the camera going, what is it about what you're showing matters to you? And again, not everyone's going to follow it. Not everyone is going to care. I wouldn't say that nobody cares about a replay, but the effort that you put into the presentation of that will matter who you're going to catch. And then you get them the second time, and then you hook people. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you the next time. And that's Uncle Ron's Thoughts. Bye-bye.